John Wayne Gacy. The name alone sends chills down spines. He was a monster disguised as a man, hiding his true nature behind a painted smile. The killer clown, they called him, a chilling moniker that reflected the horrifying reality of his crimes. Gacy's reign of terror left an indelible scar on America, a stark reminder that darkness can lurk beneath the most unassuming facades. This is the story of John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown. The seeds of suspicion began to sprout. Whispers circulated about Gacy, a strange tension surrounding the man who once seemed so ordinary. Young boys, some just teenagers, began to disappear from the community. The disappearances were too frequent, too similar to ignore. The authorities started to connect the dots. December 1978. A search warrant for Gacy's home was issued. The stench hit them first, a gruesome odor emanating from the crawl space. Skeletal remains, twisted and intertwined, emerged from the darkness. The discovery sent shockwaves through America. John Wayne Gacy Jr. entered the world on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He was the second child of John Sr. and Marion Gacy, a working-class family yearning for stability and respect. His father, a World War I veteran, battled alcoholism and held on to a volatile temper that frequently erupted into violence. John Sr., a man of rigid expectations, often belittled his son, calling him slow and stupid. The constant barrage of verbal abuse left invisible scars, chipping away at John's self-esteem. This desire, warped by years of emotional abuse and social isolation, would fester within him, laying the foundation for the monster he would become. Section 2. The mask begins to crack. John's teenage years offered little respite from the turmoil of his childhood. He struggled to fit in, his awkwardness and introverted nature making him an easy target for bullies. Behind his carefully constructed facade of normalcy, a darkness brewed. After graduating high school, John drifted through a series of jobs, never quite finding his footing. His need for control intensified, manifesting in increasingly disturbing ways. Section 3. The allure of power. In Waterloo, John's life took a sinister turn. He joined a local Jaycees chapter, a civic organization that provided him with an outlet for his need for recognition and control. John began to exploit his position within the Jaycees, using his charm and charisma to gain the trust of young boys from troubled backgrounds. In 1968, John's carefully constructed facade shattered. To Section 1. Whispers in the wind. The disappearances started subtly, like whispers in the wind. Young men, their lives full of promise, vanished without a trace. The missing were all young males, most in their teens or early 20s. They were last seen in areas where John Wayne Gacy, the seemingly ordinary contractor and part-time clown, was known to frequent. The police, initially dismissive, began to take notice. Section 2. The walls close in. The investigation into the disappearances led the police to the doorstep of John Wayne Gacy. His past conviction for sexual assault, coupled with the chilling coincidence of the missing boys being last seen in his vicinity, made him a person of interest. Detectives placed Gacy under surveillance, watching his every move. The break came in December 1978. A 15-year-old boy, Robert Peast, disappeared after telling his mother he was going to meet Gacy about a potential job. Armed with a search warrant, the police descended upon the unassuming ranch house on Summerdale Avenue. Section 3. The House of Horrors. What the police uncovered inside John Wayne Gacy's home defied comprehension. The stench of death led them to the crawl space beneath the house. Skeletal remains, twisted and intertwined, emerged from the shallow graves. The nation watched in horror as the body count climbed. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, became a symbol of pure evil. Section 4. A nation gripped by fear. The news of John Wayne Gacy's arrest and the gruesome discovery at his home spread like wildfire. The nation was captivated by the case, horrified yet unable to look away from the unfolding nightmare. The case sparked widespread fear and anxiety, particularly among parents. John Wayne Gacy's reign of terror may have ended, but the scars he left on the nation ran deep. The air crackled with tension inside the interrogation room. John Wayne Gacy, his face stripped of its usual jovial mask, sat across from seasoned detectives. Gacy, initially cocky and evasive, maintained his innocence. The detectives, armed with the gruesome evidence unearthed from Gacy's home, chipped away at his facade. The confession, when it finally came, was chilling in its matter-of-factness. With Gacy's confession, the investigation entered a new, even more harrowing phase. The task before the authorities was colossal: to identify the victims, to piece together the timeline of Gacy's crimes. Forensic experts meticulously combed through the crime scene. The identification process was agonizingly slow, a painful reminder of the human cost of Gacy's crimes. The nation mourned with their families, sharing in their grief and outrage. Found guilty on 33 counts of murder, John Wayne Gacy was sentenced to death. He was incarcerated at Menard Correctional Center, a maximum security prison in Illinois, where he would spend the next 14 years of his life. The killer clown, stripped of his freedom and the mask of normalcy he had so carefully cultivated, became a macabre spectacle, the subject of endless fascination and revulsion. From his prison cell, Gacy attempted to control the narrative of his crimes. He granted interviews, corresponded with journalists and true crime enthusiasts, and even painted self-portraits, often depicting himself as Pogo the Clown, as if seeking to reclaim a twisted sense of control over his public image. Despite his attempts to manipulate public perception, Gacy's crimes continued to haunt him. He became a symbol of evil, his name synonymous with unimaginable cruelty. The families of his victims, forever scarred by his actions, found solace in his conviction, their pain a constant reminder of the human cost of his depravity. As Gacy awaited his execution, the debate over capital punishment raged on. Some argued that death was the only fitting punishment for his crimes, a necessary act of retribution. Others, citing his mental state and the possibility of rehabilitation, opposed the death penalty, arguing for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Section 4. The Shadow Remains. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His death, witnessed by the families of his victims, marked the end of a long and painful chapter in American criminal history. The killer clown was gone, but the shadow of his crimes continued to loom large, a stark reminder of the darkness that can reside in the human heart. Gacy's case had a profound impact on criminal profiling, forensic science, and law enforcement procedures. It highlighted the vulnerability of young people, the importance of community awareness, and the need for improved communication and coordination in missing persons cases. The legacy of John Wayne Gacy serves as a chilling reminder that evil can wear many faces and that even in the most ordinary of settings, darkness can lurk beneath the surface. His crimes shattered the illusion of safety, forcing society to confront the uncomfortable reality that monsters can walk among us, hidden in plain sight. Although decades have passed since Gacy's reign of terror ended, the memory of his crimes continues to haunt the nation. The victims, their families, and the countless lives forever changed by his actions serve as a solemn reminder of the human cost of evil and the importance of remaining vigilant in the face of darkness. Section 1. The Trial of the Century. The trial of John Wayne Gacy began on February 6, 1980 in Chicago. The media dubbed it the trial of the century. The brutality of Gacy's crimes and the number of victims captivated the nation. The courtroom became a stage, the eyes of the world watching. Prosecutor Richard M. Daley presented a mountain of evidence. Forensic experts detailed the gruesome discoveries at Gacy's home. Neighbors and former employees took the stand, painting a picture of a man leading a double life. The most heart-wrenching testimony came from the families of the victims, sharing their stories of loss. Throughout the trial, Gacy remained a chillingly enigmatic figure, occasionally smiling, seemingly amused by the proceedings. His lawyers attempted to portray him as a victim driven to madness by childhood trauma. Central to Gacy's defense was the issue of insanity. His lawyers argued he was not of sound mind when he committed the murders, driven by uncontrollable impulses, a slave to his own twisted psyche. Psychiatrists and psychologists presented their assessments of Gacy's mental state, turning the courtroom into a battleground of competing diagnoses. The prosecution countered with their own experts, arguing Gacy was aware of his crimes, his actions calculated and deliberate. They pointed to his efforts to conceal the bodies, mislead the police, and his manipulative demeanor. The courtroom became a stage for a chilling exploration of the human psyche, as experts debated the nature of evil and the boundaries of sanity. The jury, tasked with deciding Gacy's fate, listened intently, their faces etched with the weight of the evidence. After weeks of testimony, the jury reached a verdict. On March 13, 1980, John Wayne Gacy was found guilty on all 33 counts of murder. The courtroom erupted in gasps and sobs, a mixture of relief and grief, washing over those who had waited years for justice to be served. Gacy, his face betraying no emotion, remained impassive as the verdict was read. The sentencing phase of the trial commenced immediately. The prosecution, seeking the ultimate punishment for Gacy's crimes, presented aggravating factors, highlighting the brutality of the murders, the young age of the victims, and the calculated nature of his actions. They argued that Gacy was a danger to society, a predator who deserved nothing less than death. Gacy's lawyers, their client's fate hanging in the balance, made a last-ditch effort to spare his life. They presented mitigating factors, citing his history of mental illness, his troubled childhood, and his contributions to the community. They pleaded with the jury to show mercy, to consider a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before returning with their decision. John Wayne Gacy was sentenced to death. The hammer of justice had fallen, bringing a sense of closure, albeit a bittersweet one, to one of the most horrific chapters in American criminal history. The specter of John Wayne Gacy continues to cast a long shadow over America, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. The image of the killer clown, his painted smile, a grotesque mockery of joy, remains seared into the nation's collective memory. Gacy's crimes sent shockwaves far beyond his suburban Chicago neighborhood, exposing the vulnerability of young people. The sheer brutality of his acts shook the nation to its core. The echoes of Gacy's horrors reverberated through courtrooms and police precincts across the country. The case also sparked a national conversation about the death penalty. The debate continues to this day, fueled by the complex moral and ethical questions raised by Gacy's case. In the wake of Gacy's reign of terror, a profound sense of responsibility emerged. A collective determination to honor the memory of the victims by becoming guardians of innocence. Parents, educators, and community leaders vowed to be more vigilant, to educate young people about the dangers of predators lurking in their midst, and to create a world where such horrors would never again be allowed to unfold. Organizations dedicated to preventing child abuse and exploitation gained momentum, their work fueled by the tragic lessons learned from Gacy's case. Law enforcement agencies implemented new protocols for investigating missing persons cases, prioritizing communication, collaboration, and the pursuit of justice for victims and their families. The legacy of John Wayne Gacy, though forever intertwined with darkness and despair, also serves as a catalyst for positive change. His case stands as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, the need for open communication between parents and children, and the collective responsibility to protect the most vulnerable members of society. While the scars of Gacy's crimes may never fully heal, the echoes of his horrors serve as a powerful call to action, a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable evil, hope and resilience can emerge, and that by working together, we can strive to create a world where such darkness will never again prevail.